What's up, everyone? Welcome to the January 18th edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can find me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We only have a 2-game NBA slate today, so going to be a little bit more of an abbreviated video. Going to take a look at 3 of the top tournament options, but only one of those options is going to be a popular player that's a little bit underowned. The other 2 are going to be more contrarian plays that have lower chances of success, but also are ways that I think you can get different on this slate in a potentially profitable way. As a reminder, we are still waiting on some news, even though there's only 2 games. So be sure to tune in to the deeper dive from 5:30 to 6:30, the live before lock show from 6:30 Eastern until 7:30 Eastern for more up-to-date information. But for now, taking a look at 3 of those top tournament options. Number 1, Julius Randle, the guy who is going to pull a lot of ownership, but also projects to be a bit underowned here. He's projected for 47% ownership on DraftKings, but he has a 53% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He has a nice pace up spot against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We know that we can expect Randle to play 37 or 38 minutes in competitive games. We know that he's well over a fantasy point per minute, and there's not that many pay up options on tonight's slate. You have Stephen Curry, you have Karl Anthony Towns. Other than that, there's nothing really to pay up for. So it makes it a little bit easier to get to Randle at this price point. The opportunity cost just isn't quite as high, and you're going to need raw points. So he just looks like an option that's still going a little bit underowned despite very high ownership. Now, to look at 2 of the more contrarian pieces, keep in mind these are much riskier plays. They are a lot less likely to succeed, but they can also be difference makers in large field tournaments. Number 1 out of the contrarian options, or I guess number 2, starting at the bottom, Naz Reid, $3,900 with power forward and center eligibility on DraftKings. He's only $3,900. The issue with Reid is that we can't realistically expect him to play more than 12 or 13 minutes behind Karl Anthony Towns. Typically, Reid doesn't share the floor with Towns, and that makes it very difficult for him to get enough minutes to be fantasy relevant since Towns is typically giving you 35, 36 minutes per game. But the reason I do have some interest in Reid on this 2-game slate is for the season, he's averaged 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. He's someone that if he manages to find his way onto the floor for more minutes than expected, whether that be garbage time in a blowout, whether that be Towns being in foul trouble, or if, unfortunately Towns has to go to the locker room for an injury or anything like that, it doesn't take a whole lot of extra playing time for Naz Reid to pay off this salary. And then there's also a non-zero chance that you get a little bit of extra run alongside Towns. He's only played 73 minutes alongside Karl Anthony Towns this season, but you do get a big New York front court with Mitchell Robinson or Taj Gibson and with Julius Randle / Obi Toppin. So there's at least the potential that you could see Reid play alongside Towns. I still don't think that's the most likely case. I think that for Reid to succeed more often than not, it's that you get Karl Anthony Towns in foul trouble, or you get a blowout, or the second unit just playing well. Those situations that aren't likely but do happen time to time over the course of a season. But Reid's only projected for 5% ownership with a 6% chance of being in the optimal lineup. As long as that ownership remains low, he remains someone that can be a difference maker in tournaments. And then the number 1 contrarian option, again, not particularly likely to succeed, but Saben Lee is $3,400 with point guard eligibility. We have him with a 13% chance, or with 13% ownership and a 21% chance of being in the optimal lineup. We can't count on Lee to play a ton of minutes because we know that he's behind Killian Hayes. We know that Corey Joseph is still in the rotation for Detroit, but Lee really isn't a bad point per minute fantasy producer. For the season, he's averaged about 0.96 DraftKings points per minute. So you can expect close to a fantasy point per minute, and he has multiple ways to get more playing time. On average, I would expect you see around 15 or 16 minutes for Lee, which at a $3,400 salary isn't necessarily the worst thing anyway, but he could potentially play more in garbage time. If he plays well, he could steal minutes from Killian Hayes. The Pistons have a very fluid rotation, which makes their backups pretty interesting targets to throw darts at on a 2-game slate. So Lee seems like someone that's going a little bit underowned, even though he's not that likely to succeed. So to recap, Julius Randle, very, very popular, 47% ownership, but projected to be a bit underowned. Looks like one of the top overall plays in terms of chances of success tonight on DraftKings. And then if you're looking for a couple more contrarian pieces to fit into your lineups, Naz Reid at 3,900. Wouldn't recommend playing him with Karl Anthony Towns, at least in most lineups. And Saban Lee at 3,400. Similarly, wouldn't recommend having him in the same lineup as Killian Hayes or Corey Joseph. But those are both lower owned guys that can make differences for you tonight.